Entropy is the only guarantee in the known universe. Given enough time, order dissolves into chaos. Iron rusts, stone crumbles, flesh decays, and money dies. The average lifespan of a fiat currency is 27 years. That is less than a single human generation. We are psychologically conditioned to believe that the paper in our wallets is permanent. We build our lives, our retirements, and our legacies on a foundation that is historically guaranteed to collapse. But there is an exception to the rule of entropy. There is a specific vehicle of value that has outlived every king, every dictator, and every central bank that tried to destroy it. It is not a stock. It is not a bond. It is not a promise. It is a form of immortal energy. To understand why you are currently working for a dying currency, we must look at the autopsy of an empire that thought it would last forever. We are going to witness the exact moment the immortality of their money was severed, and how a select few saw the rot before the rest of the world smelled the decay. This is the anatomy of financial survival. The year is 274 AD. The location is the heart of the Roman Empire. Marcus, a pragmatic merchant supplying grain to the legions, sat in his villa counting the day's receipts. On his table lay a pile of silver denarii. To the untrained eye, they looked like the currency that had built the Colosseum. They bore the face of the emperor. They carried the official seal. But Marcus took a small knife and scratched the surface of a coin. Beneath the thin, shimmering wash of silver, the dull, reddish hue of copper bled through. He felt a cold pit form in his stomach. This was not money. It was a prop. Over the last 50 years, the Roman state had systematically reduced the silver content of the denarius from 98% to less than 5%. They did this to fund endless wars and lavish public spectacles without raising taxes. They chose the invisible tax of debasement. Marcus looked at the silver in his hands and realized he was holding the physical evidence of a lie. The empire demanded he accept these coins at face value. If he refused, he was a traitor. If he accepted, he was a bankrupt man. The prices in the market were reacting to this fraud. Wheat that cost 4 denarii a year ago now cost 20. The people blamed the greedy merchants. They blamed the weather. They blamed the gods. They suffered from money blindness. They could not see that the measuring stick itself was shrinking. Marcus knew he had to exit the system. He had to trade these copper lies for something that the emperor could not debase. He needed an asset that did not rely on the decree of the Senate. He looked out his window at the rolling hills of Tuscany. He realized that while empires crumble and coins turn to dust, the soil remains. He made a dangerous decision. He would liquidate his entire cash position, a fortune in the eyes of the state, and convert it into the only thing they weren't making any more of. Marcus began to divest. He didn't panic sell. That would have alerted the authorities. He moved with the quiet precision of a surgeon. He traded his bags of debased silver for acres of fertile soil, stone barns, and livestock. The seller of the land mocked him. The seller looked at the pile of shiny coins and thought he had robbed the merchant. He believed he was rich because he had more units of currency. This is the psychological trap of nominal confusion. The human brain is wired to count quantity, not quality. If you have 10 coins today and 20 tomorrow, you feel twice as rich. But if the buying power of those coins has dropped by 60%, you are actually poorer. The seller was chasing the symbol of wealth. Marcus was capturing the source of it. 3 years later, the inevitable mathematical collapse arrived. The Emperor Diocletian issued the edict on maximum prices, attempting to fix the cost of goods by death penalty. It failed. Economics always overpowers legislation. The denarius became so worthless that soldiers refused to accept it as payment. Trade reverted to barter. The man who had sold the land to Marcus was now destitute, holding sacks of metal that no baker would accept. Marcus, however, was untouched. His wealth was not in the coins. It was in the wheat his land produced and the cattle in his barns. He had successfully performed a store of value rotation. He shifted from a medium of exchange, currency, to a store of utility, assets. This highlights a critical lesson. Real money is not what you spend, it is what you keep. If you are finding value in this forensic approach to wealth history, make sure you are subscribed and have liked the video. It signals that you prefer hard truths over soft lies. Marcus survived the fall of Rome not because he was a soldier, but because he was a realist. He understood that there is a difference between currency and money. Currency is a government tool used to tax time and energy. Money is a vehicle that preserves that energy. The land was the money. The coin was just a lie used to measure it. But this raises a disturbing question for the modern citizen. Marcus had land to run to. He had a physical escape hatch. In a digital world, where every asset class is securitized, levered, and financialized, where is the escape hatch? Pause for a moment and conduct a mental audit. Look at your net worth. How much of it is truly yours, and how much of it is merely a digital entry on a server that you do not control. Is it 80%? Is it 100%? Drop the percentage in the comments. It is uncomfortable to realize how much of your survival depends on a system staying online. Marcus's realization exposes the fundamental pathology of the human economy, the Cantillon effect. This is not just an economic theory, it is a mechanism of social hierarchy. When the emperor debased the currency, the new money did not flow evenly to everyone. It went first to the state, the military, and those closest to the power center. They got to spend the money at its full value before prices rose. By the time that money trickled down to the merchant, the farmer, and the laborer, prices had already skyrocketed. This creates a hidden transfer of wealth, a parasitic extraction, from the productive class to the political class. Psychologically, this creates a state of learned helplessness. The citizen feels they are running faster and faster, yet falling further behind. They do not understand the mechanics, so they blame themselves. They internalize the failure. They work harder, creating more value, but the vessel they store that value in, the currency, has a hole in the bottom. This leads to a degradation of the collective moral character known as high time preference. When money loses value, the future becomes discounted. Why save for a decade if your savings will be halved? Why build a business for the next generation if the rules will change tomorrow? The rational response to soft money is to consume immediately. Civilization begins to rot from the inside out. Architecture becomes cheap. Art becomes derivative. Relationships become transactional. Because there is no permanence in the money, there is no permanence in the culture. Marcus chose hard money. Hard money is an asset that is resistant to human tampering. It imposes a cognitive load on the owner. It requires responsibility. You must guard the land. You must herd the cattle. Soft money offers cognitive ease. It is light. It is easy to carry. It requires no effort. But the price of that ease is your sovereignty. The human brain naturally seeks the path of least resistance, cognitive ease, which is why we readily accept fiat currency despite its history of failure. We trade our freedom for convenience. We trust the bank because we are too lazy to be our own bank. We trust the inflation data because we are too frightened to calculate the true cost of living. This is the illusion of stability. We mistake the lack of volatility for safety. The denarius was stable, right until the moment it wasn't. The illusion of safety is the most dangerous risk of all. True wealth is not a number on a screen. True wealth is entropy resistant. It is the ability to maintain order and energy in a system that wants to dissolve into chaos. Marcus understood that the only money that never dies is the money that is alive, either physically, land/cattle, or energetically, gold/resources. Anything that requires a signature to validate is not money. It is a coupon. The Roman Empire did not disappear. It just changed management. We are living through the exact same cycle of debasement, only now it is digital and global. We do not clip coins anymore. We click buttons. We call it quantitative easing. We call it stimulus. But the result is identical. The dilution of your life energy. Since 2020, approximately 40% of all US dollars in existence were printed. If your net worth did not increase by 40% in that same time frame, you did not break even. You lost. You are being taxed silently by the very medium you used to save. To survive this modern dilution, you must adopt the Marcus Protocol. You must stop viewing money as a storage unit and start viewing it as a hot potato. Here are 3 forensic steps to inoculate your finances against the death of currency. Action Step 1. The hard asset floor. You must establish a baseline of wealth that exists outside the financial system. If you have 100% of your net worth in fiat currency or bonds, you are short human innovation and long government incompetence. That is a losing trade. You need assets that are scarce. Real estate, gold, Bitcoin, fine art. These are not investments in the traditional sense. They are life rafts. They are the land Marcus bought. They do not rely on the competence of a central banker to maintain their value. Get off zero. Even a 5% allocation to hard assets changes your psychological relationship with the state. Action Step 2. Short the currency, the debt hedge. In an inflationary environment, debt is a weapon. If you borrow money at a fixed rate, like a 30-year mortgage, to buy a hard asset, like a house, you are effectively shorting the currency. You are freezing your cost today and paying it back with cheaper, debased dollars tomorrow. The bank takes the loss. You take the asset, but this requires discipline. This applies to productive debt, not consumer debt. Do not borrow to buy a car that depreciates. Borrow to acquire assets that inflate. Let inflation pay off your liabilities. Action Step 3. The sovereign skill set. The ultimate hedge against the collapsing currency is the ability to generate new value on demand. In 274 AD, Marcus knew how to manage a supply chain. That skill was valuable regardless of who was emperor. In 2024, you must own a skill that cannot be inflated away. Sales, coding, copywriting, strategic consulting. If your income is tied to a fixed salary, you are a sitting duck. You need a variable income that can reprice itself instantly as the currency loses value. If bread doubles in price, your skill must command double the fee. Become the pricing authority of your own labor. The coins that Marcus scratched with his knife in 274 AD now sit in museum display cases. They have zero purchasing power. They are dead artifacts of a civilization that thought it was invincible. But the land he bought, the farmland in Tuscany, it is still there. It is still producing food. It is still generating value. The currency died. The wealth survived. This is the final lesson of the forensic history of money. We are currently living inside a monetary experiment that is nearing the end of its mathematical lifespan. The debt cycles are tightening. The printing presses are overheating. The system relies entirely on your continued suspension of disbelief. It needs you to believe that a piece of paper or a digital digit has value simply because a politician signed a decree. But belief is a finite resource. Once it runs out, the reversion to reality is violent and swift. You do not have to be a victim of this cycle. You have the advantage of history. You have the advantage of foresight. Most people will wait until the crisis is at their door before they act. They will wait until the bread costs a wheelbarrow of cash before they look for an exit. By then, the gates will be closed. The window to exchange your dying paper for living assets is open right now, but it will not stay open forever. Do not let your labor be stored in a battery that leaks. Do not let your life's work be erased by a central planner's keystroke. Be like Marcus. Look at the money in your hand. Scratch the surface. See the copper beneath the silver. And then make the trade. Exit the illusion. Enter the reality. We are done here. I want you to leave a mark of your understanding in the comments below. If you refuse to let your wealth die with the currency, write the word alive. Let that word be a signal that you are moving your energy into assets that breathe, that endure, and that cannot be printed. And if you want to continue analyzing the architecture of power and money with a clinical eye, subscribe. We do not sell dreams here. We diagnose reality.